representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn. Hey listeners, if you're not in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Now, this is a large community of franchisees, franchisors, buyers, sellers, anybody that's involved in franchising in any way. It's the community to go to, ask your questions, get answers, help people out, and get help. It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Welcome to the Franchise Secrets Podcast with your host, Erik Van Horn. With today's guest, Dane Espegard. We really got to know each other through Front Row Dads. Shout out to John Vroman and the whole crew over to Front Row Dads. So many good people in that group. And then Dane's spoken to the mastermind, the managers in the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. We've got a lot of mutual friends. So I just wanted to get him in here. He's not a franchisee. He's not a franchisor. He's not a franchise buyer, but he's as close as you can get. And here's what I mean by that. He is with Cutco. If anybody of you have Cutco knives, it's the company Cutco. Incredible sales culture there. Some really incredible, smart people come out of that company. He's got the top office out of 700 in that entire company. The top office out of 700. He's number 2 out of 50 divisions. So the second in 50 divisions in that company. He's coming out with his new book in September 28th called The Dream Machine. And we're going to dive into that. But here's the thing. He deals with high turnover employees, and he wants to set, he's really good at setting up a culture around this dream machine. And so if you ever deal with employee turnover, you deal with employee engagement, you deal with how do you incentivize people, you're going to love this conversation with Dane. Dane, welcome to the show.
Hey, happy to be here. Been looking forward to it.
Dude, same here. And just before we were about ready to jump on, you're like so many other really smart people. You're going to be in my backyard in South Dakota soon, right?
Yes, we're about to embark on our first ever family, we'll call it RV or camper trip. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, the first ever fully rehabbed, I'm sure, very nice Airstream camper RV, pulling it behind a truck trip. So that's going to be fun. And how old are your kids?
3 years old is the youngest daughter. And then my oldest daughter turns 5 at the end of the month. So
dude, that is going to be quite the adventure. Yeah. I know that you and I have mutual friends that kind of live adventures like this. So we can lean on them for what to do and what not to do. Yeah. But I can't, well, hopefully we'll be able to see each other face to face. You'll come out to the ranch and check out the horses and the chicken egg business and get the families to meet each other. But can you kind of go back to Cutco? There's a lot of people may not be familiar with Cutco. I'm just a huge fan. I got some of their knives. I just know some amazing people that have come out of Cutco. So reference some people from that world, like Ryan Casey. A lot of people know Ryan Casey here, but talk about Cutco, what you do there.
Yeah. So Cutco is the direct sales company. Well, technically, it's Vector Marketing is the direct sales company for Cutco Cutlery. All American made products, been around since 1949. And really, Cutco is known for the knives, but also for the sales opportunity as an entry-level position for a lot of students. So I started with Cutco as a college student right out of high school while I went to school at University of Wisconsin-Madison. That's where a lot of our mutual friends come from. They kind of cut their teeth in entry-level sales, selling Cutco knives at kitchen tables, not necessarily door to door, but making a bunch of phone calls, setting up appointments, and then getting in front of people, giving their pitch. And, Justin Donald, he's one of my best friends. That's where I met Justin. Ryan Casey, obviously, John Vroman from Front Row Dads, John Berghoff. A lot of guys know, a lot of individuals know John Berghoff. I'm trying to think, John Rulin.
Oh yeah. John's been on the show as well. Our buddy Hal Elrod.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Miracle Morning this, Miracle Morning that.
So yeah, the list, it's great. And some of those guys are still with Cutco, and some of them have obviously moved on, and it's been great, keeping in contact with them as well. And so I've been there 19 years now. Didn't know it would turn into a long-term thing for me, but I loved it during college. It gave me kind of a platform for learning business skills at the same time as developing kind of a taste for personal growth. And when I graduated from school, decided to stay with Cutco as a career opportunity. And so their career opportunity is somewhat in we've talked about this before. When I describe it to somebody who's unfamiliar with it, I say it's similar to a franchise model, but you're not a franchise owner. Mm-hmm. And so it is, there's all the scripts and the way of doing things. It's all standardized. It's very, cut and dry. Here's exactly how to be successful within that organization. We're given a territory. There's some financial incentives with Cutco and whatnot, but we operate as a 1099 independent contractor within that.
It's your business. I mean, it's your business. It's more, it's kind of like, I mean, there's always this gray line. Is it a franchise? Is it licensing? What is it? And I mean, Chick-fil-A, I mean, that's a kind of a pseudo franchise. And there's a lot of things out there that are like that. But the point of it is like you own a business and then you deal with, are they seasonal employees or seasonal salespeople? So
the sales model is evolved a little bit. Forever, it had been almost 100% college student, high school grad, 18 to 22-year-olds, and it was really seasonally heavy. And we now have a much more enticing year-round opportunity for career sales professionals. And so now my role is still heavy in the recruiting aspect and the onboarding and the training of those individuals that don't have any sales experience. And then it's also working with and retaining those individuals post-college. And so those are the roles that we have there. And then we also have a management pipeline that we, try and retain as many of our top student performers as possible post-college in the management track. And that's where we help them to learn how to open up their own office as well.
Awesome. Well, let's reference back to our mutual good friend, Ryan Casey. He's going to be out here in South Dakota at the, we're calling it the Sodak Shindig. It's Franchise Tribe members. And we got some members of Justin Donald's high-level investor mastermind coming out too. It's going to be a fun time. But Ryan and I, out of COVID, started a sales training thing just to start helping some franchisees. And then I got busy with stuff, and he's so good at all this. He just took it on and just took it to a whole nother level. But a lot of what he's put into place at Orange Theory to make him so successful there are things that he learned at Cutco. So franchisees, listen up, because Dane's going to be dropping some serious knowledge here and some such great value. So let's talk about the book.
Yeah, so the book is called The Dream Machine, and this has been something that we've done in our organization for the last 8 or 9 years. It kind of started for me as something that I was just personally excited about. And so I took it to work. It was inspired by a message I heard from Matthew Kelly. He wrote a book called The Dream Manager. Our company hired him to come and be a keynote speaker. And we made our first dreams list at a conference, and I took it home and felt a lot of energy from it, but then it just kind of lived on my laptop for about 5 years and I didn't do anything with it. In 2012, I was making a lateral move, same role, but different territory. So I was basically starting from scratch again in terms of building a team. And so I got a little bit more intentional that time about what I wanted my team to be about. So we chose dreams as our kind of centerpiece. And I dove back into that concept, dove back into my list. And then that's kind of when it started. 2013 for us was the first year. And we've kind of added different iterations to our dreams culture over the course of the last 8-9 years to where it is today. But over COVID, actually, Justin Donald was the one that kind of inspired me to put it all onto paper and put it out there. And he's like, he's seen the concept flourish within my organization. And he was like, you gotta get this out there. This is something that a lot of businesses can benefit from. And so that's kind of where the concept started from.
The extra push from Justin Donald, who wrote a book called Lifestyle Investor. Anybody that doesn't have that book should check it out. And it's done wonders for his personal brand. So get the Lifestyle Investor and get the book, The Dream Machine, coming out on the 28th of September. But dive into that. Like, what's the Dream Machine?
So the idea behind it is a low maintenance system that's going to engage and retain your individuals.
Dude, I was setting this up.
Yeah.
That's a good hook right there.
When I was setting it up, I was trying to do something that, any business owner, you got a million things going on, from, planning the next, staff meeting, sales meeting, the hiring, the sales objectives, the customer engagement. And so the last thing that I wanted in my organization was some extra system that was going to be time intensive. And so the dreams thing was something that I knew that I cared a lot about. So I knew I would naturally kind of live the concept out loud. And that's really how it started, was me getting really serious about my dreams with my wife, and then bringing that to our top tier managers. We helped them make their first dreams list in 2013. And that's kind of where it lived for the first 2-3 years, is that we would just talk about our dreams list. So it gave it somewhat of a vocabulary. Instead of goals or bucket list, it was, hey, these are things that we're trying to check off our list as we go. And then after that, we started a full-fledged dreams retreat. So that's where we're at now. That we have an annual event for our entire team, and it's not an obligation that they attend, but it's the most anticipated event that we have. We took a normal sales conference and kind of scrapped it and said, we're just going to do this dreams concept. So we take our team through kind of a 3-step process. And the book talks about this, from like exactly how to do it. And so we call it a dreams retreat. It's like not in the normal, business setting, casual attire. And there's 3 parts. The first part, we help people make their list. It's called dream storming. So we take them through a full process. By the end of that, they'll typically have about 100 to 300 dreams on their list. And we take them through 9 categories: travel, adventure, vocational, financial, family related, health, spiritual.
Can we pause there and give me an example of some of your team's dreams? Because I'm wondering, I know what some of mine are, but I don't know what some of my team members, some of the people that work for me at a management level, or the people that are reporting up to management. So what are some examples of some of the things that you've seen on the list?
Seeing the list is awesome. So we start with travel, because that, in my experience, is the easiest for people to get an abundant amount on the list. And what's cool with that is you'll be able to start seeing that some individuals have travel goals that are actually local, right? They just haven't gone. If you live in a bigger city and it's like, oh, I want to go to this state park that's 2 hours away, or this kind of vacation destination that's an hour away. And then there's also the large ones of, I want to go to Bali, or I want to go to Thailand, or I want to go to, the Olympics in Japan, or, there's some really neat travel things on there. But then when we go through these, there's a lot of, we spend time on every category. And while we do this, I'm basically reading off this master list of dreams as thought joggers. And so it's pretty simple for them to get down quite a few on there. Some of them are really simple. I had a guy on my team that I reached out during COVID to see how he was holding up. And he's on the events program for us, which means he sells Cutco at a booth. Well, when COVID hit, their business was gone for that period of time. And so I was making my rounds of, hey, how are you doing? How are you holding up? And he's like, it's actually been great. I've gotten more done on my dreams list than I've ever gotten done before. And I was like, well, that's great. And he goes, yeah, I just finished flossing for 30 days straight. And I said, that was on the list? And he said, yeah, it was on my dreams list. I said, all right. So sometimes it's as simple as something like that. I've had people that have said they wanted to get voice lessons or learn a new language, or some of them aren't a check it off the list item, but they're a way they want to live. So it's be engaged with my spouse, right? Be more present with my kids. So it's really neat, because what I found, it covers kind of all the bases of life. And it also changes, we're used to having business conversations with people at work, right? So it's, how's the project coming, or how are you, progressing towards these goals? And now that the conversation changes and it's about, what are they trying to accomplish in their life, and work becomes the vehicle for it instead of sometimes an obstacle against it.
So keep diving into the book. So they get their dreams. So at the retreat, you were kind of saying at the retreat, they're building out their list, so they've got their list built out. What's next?
So when they build that list, that's the first part. And that was what we started with years ago. We didn't do anything else after that. And there's, you take a certain sample size of people. There's always some that are attracted to this thing. All they need is the list, and they take off. And what's cool with that is that person that kind of becomes the example in your organization. But that's the first part. We then ask them, if it's at like a full-fledged retreat thing, we actually put them in small groups and they do what's called dream sharing, dream stealing. So they'll go through and share ones from their categories that are either they want to do or they're just unique or funny. And so there's a weird, like a pretty deep bond that's created from that, because they're hearing things from somebody else that they haven't shared with sometimes friends or family, because they didn't even know it was, a thing until they put it down on paper. So that's kind of a neat thing that comes from it. They're stealing, they're adding more to their list from hearing other people. And then the last part of it is we take action on it. So we give them the space, a couple of hours at this event, to actually find, 5 to 10 on their list that they think are doable in the next 6 months or so. And then they start doing research. And so it's simple Google search of, I want to become more knowledgeable on wine. What kind of wine classes can I take? What about photography? Or they're making phone calls to friends to say, hey, I know we talked about, going to see the Broncos play. Can we do one of these weekends work? So they're taking action during that. So the goal is when they leave that, everybody's got something in the calendar that they're working towards. And the whole kind of premise of all of this is that, when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. So if I have something that's in my schedule, this camping trip that's coming up, right? It's given us enjoyment just through the anticipation of it, right? We're not even on the trip yet.
That's so true.
And so, with this, it's like, if I can get my employees, my team members to always have something in the calendar, they're just showing up different.
So what are some of the things that you've noticed? Because day to day working with these guys, now what some of their dreams are, some of the big ones and some of the small ones and some of the massive ones, like traveling to the great state of South Dakota. That's got to be like number one or number two for your
pretty
family.
much everybody.
Yes, pretty much everybody. That's true. That's very true. Because we have Mount Rushmore and the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. So the big bucket list items right there. But what have you noticed with like your interaction with them, their interaction with you, knowing that you guys, they have this dream list and the dream list?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of it has to do with, people want to be cared about. And we don't want to just be a cog in a wheel. And it's really hard for somebody to leave an employer that they know has a personal stake in them. And so the conversations now aren't, I feel like there's always this feeling sometimes around vacations where it's like, an employer might give vacation time, but maybe an employee feels bad taking it, right? And it's like, well, I'm leaving them. But during that time, it's like, it just gives a positive tone to all of these conversations. So if somebody's going on a vacation, it's almost inevitably for us now something that's on their dreams list. So it becomes an exciting, like, oh, that's fantastic. I'm about to kind of leave my day-to-day stuff for the longest period that I've ever left. But everybody who works on my team knows that it's on my dreams list and it's really important to me. So they're excited to step up to be able to contribute so that I have that opportunity to experience one of my dreams. So there's that. There's also the health category, I think, is so powerful because there's almost everybody, when we go through the health thing, will have something on there that is pretty doable within the next 6 to 12 months. Sign up for a bike race, right? Do a Tough Mudder, something like that. When I see those, I'll always go to those and try and see if there's something I can assist with, where it's like, hey, Erik, I saw on your list you had a Tough Mudder. There's one coming up in this town. Are you serious about wanting to do that? If so, I'd love to split the entrance for you, right? And contribute a little bit towards that. It's not a big commitment financially for me. And now I have an employee who's working out consistently for 3-4 months. That's going to be bringing extra energy to work. So I think it just, there's so much more to talk about than the normal, hey, how are the kids?
Yeah.
Right. And going through the same conversation that you normally would have.
What, from a retention standpoint, obviously you get to know the team members at a different level. Have you measured retention, and have you seen, any differences as you've started to, do something like this consistently?
So the most telling thing for me was during COVID, we didn't lose anybody on our professional selling team. And that was unique to our division within our company. Part of our business took off during COVID. Another part, the professional sales side, they got crushed. And to not lose anyone during that, I think was really connected to this dreams concept. One, we had a deeper relationship, but also they had still purpose, right? And you think there's so many people that just go day to day, week to week, month to month. It's just kind of, well, I'm here because I'm here. I don't really know why. And what this does is it gives somebody a lot more purpose to what they're doing, even outside of work.
Let's kind of hang out here around the dealing with employee turnover, retention, because it costs so much to get a new employee, train them. And, we all know that it costs more than we probably even want to know. So what are some of your, over the years, things that you've learned about how do you keep the good people? So
great question. I think one of them comes from the mindset of everyone is temporary. And so I approach, at first I kind of thought, well, we're in direct sales, so our turnovers, is pretty heavy. And then it's, as I talk to more business owners over the years, it's like, no, everybody struggles with turnover. And so it's not as specific to one industry. So I think changing my viewpoint to every single person that I work with is temporary. Even myself, I'm temporary. I've been at the same company for 19 years, but at some point I won't be here. And so I'm still temporary. And I think operating from that place allows me to constantly be courting that individual. Right.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
If you knew that your most important person was interviewing at another company, it's already too late.
So it's kind of two ways. I mean, because I agree with that everyone's temporary. But from an employer standpoint, you don't want to think that they're probably interviewing someplace else that has a better work environment. You probably think, and this is at least my fault, I think like, well, I don't need you. I can always replace you.
Yeah.
So, but it's a two-way street. So that's interesting. Keep going.
Yeah. So it definitely is they could leave at any time. And also, hey, look, I can put somebody else in that role. I probably don't, if I like this person, I'd much rather keep developing this individual that's here. But when I operate from this place of like, hey, if I found out today that they're interviewing somewhere else, it's already too late. Mm-hmm. Right. So how do I never get to that place with this individual? And for me, it's been centered around, if I know that this person is, growing as an individual while they're working on my team, it's going to be difficult for them to leave because now it's not just about the paycheck, right? And there's plenty of studies out there that show, I don't know what the number is. I think it's $75,000. Once you reach that, a $5K increase doesn't give you the same impact as it does when you're south of that number. And so it becomes other stuff. It's, do I feel valued? Am I a part of something that's moving? Am I doing good work? There's a quote that I love, really simple one, but progress is happiness. I think I heard it at Tony Robbins conference or something, but the idea of if somebody's just moving forward and they can see themselves moving forward, they're probably feeling pretty good. Whether that means my skill set, my sales numbers, my role within, whatever said company is. But I always am operating from this, hey, this person could be a couple of bad months away from leaving. And so if I can attach them to some purpose in the next 2, 3, 4 months that they're working towards, well, it's not going to be hard for me to fast forward a year, 2 years, 3 years and see that person here.
Do you have any good stories of you just doing this with this mindset and then someone came to you and said, hey, this is the reason I didn't do anything when I got this job offer? Or do you have any stories like that?
Yeah. So I have, it's not uncommon for our people to get poached, right? Because they're working with.
Shoot, I want to poach your people. Like I'm the guy that's like, if I need somebody good at sales, I go straight to Cutco, straight to number 1 office and number 2 division. He's trained them up right. But now I'm second guessing this whole strategy. No, I'm teasing. Go ahead.
So we have in one of the things, so here's an example. Cleen Dolan is somebody who's on my team. She's been with me for 5 years, I believe now, 4 or 5 years. And she's had a few different opportunities to leave. So one of the times she took 3-4 months off to check off a massive thing on her dreams list. She wanted to go backpacking in Europe, right? And so I knew she was working really hard. At the end of that, she was going to take, call it a sabbatical, whatever you want, but 3-4 months to just go live life. And there was no commitment of, I'm coming back here to your team, right? I didn't ask for that. I don't think that'd be right of me to ask that at that time because That's a life-changing.
You wanted to though, didn't you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. But I also know that she's going to have so many thoughts on this trip. And if I have helped her grow as an individual, I'm also the one that said, you should take that trip, right? Like as you get older, it's a little more difficult to do that. Doesn't mean that you can't, but you should do that. And so when she came back, she was massively energized, had full purpose with us. She broke a bunch of sales records immediately. And she's still here. I think that the sabbatical was at the end of 2019, and she's still here on our team today. And so she has told me outright, hey, if it weren't for the dreams thing, I wouldn't be here anymore. I've got an individual on my team that last year during the COVID year, he accomplished over 30 things on his dreams list.
Wow.
And that guy is so talented, and given the opportunity, any company would want to poach him.
See, I love this. Listeners, you are listening to Dane, not just talk about the team that he has, but he's got this team that's fiercely loyal to him because of this. He's not out there trying to poach from other top sales organizations. He's created it. So this is like, I hope that the listeners understand the difference between what you've created and the culture that you have versus just what's out there. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are envious of you right now, but this is really impressive, man. So again, like more with employee turnover, anything else, any other nuggets that you want to leave the listeners with? Because everyone deals with it and everyone hates it. And I would say most people are probably dealing with it wrong, myself included.
So I think some of it still goes back to just the mindset of the business owner, right? So one is everybody's temporary. Another viewpoint that I have is I'd rather have somebody really engaged for 2 years than asleep at the wheel for 4. And sometimes and I've been here many times where the easy road has been to not dive into that tough conversation when I can tell somebody is maybe stuck in life. And I don't know if I have the capacity for that right now. But yeah, that person might not leave, but there's also an opportunity cost for your business there with having somebody who's kind of mailing it in. And so if me developing this person and they're living life at a high level and they are able to leave somewhere else, I'm okay losing that person. Obviously, I'd rather not. But the time that they were here, man, they were on fire. And on top of that, there's probably somebody else riding their coattails that are ready to step into that role because they're working next to them, right? They're getting that energy.
So the one that's there 4 years when they should be there 2 years, is that a proactive conversation? Is it you kind of setting them up with some things and they kind of come to that conclusion themselves? Because, most people, you're supposed to hire slow, fire fast. Most business owners, especially new business owners, don't do that. So give us some of the Dane wisdom on like the person that shouldn't be there on the team. Either something needs to change or they're going to be there the last 2 years, kind of being very, pretty much unproductive or at least taking the place of a very productive person. So how do you deal with that situation?
So one of the things that the people that work on our team will hear me say often is that you should stay in a business as long as you can see yourself continuing to grow. So I've been upfront with all of them that I will leave the business that I'm at if I feel like I have no more opportunity to grow, whether that means personally, in the business. But once somebody stops growing, they need to, I think, take a look and say, hey, is this serving me anymore? And sometimes it might be a work thing. Sometimes it's a personal thing. I have somebody on my team right now, and my conversation with them is, hey, we worked together a long time. Let's look through your numbers. It doesn't appear like you're growing as definitely not in the business, right? But that's linked to you personally. The old adage of you've got a work life and a home life, like that's just not true anymore. And I think it's I'm sure we've all had a fight with our spouse before. It's like, it's impossible for that not to bleed into your day at some point. And so with this individual, I just said, look, I think you may need to move on and take a look at something else that's going to reinvigorate you. And this person said, no, I want to be here. We're still in the middle of the conversation right now where it allows me to come from a place of this whole dream stuff as you as the person, right? So it's, hey, Erik, I don't want you to be, I know your wife, I know your kids. In this case, I know his kid, right? It's like, there's no way you're thriving as a dad at home if this is how you're showing up at work. So let's discuss how to get you there here, or what your exit plan is going to be.
So we won't necessarily, I don't want to pinpoint this one, maybe, but if you, in general, how many people like this are on their way out or eventually go out, and how many people kind of change their attitude and get some things changed that need to be changed, and all of a sudden become that productive person?
I feel like that's a tough response, because there's so many different variables. Like, this individual has a son that's under 2, just built a home, sold a home. So he's had a lot of life moments in the last couple of years, and then mix COVID in, right? So there's a lot of factors for him. I feel like I'm able to have these conversations if I'm also equipping and providing tools for growth.
Yeah.
So if it's, hey, here's the menu, here's what everybody's doing. If you're choosing not to grow, that's when I think you should go somewhere else. So he, because of, I think, our longevity of relationship, is wanting to stay. But at the same time, it's got to be right, right? Like, he's a territory manager for us. And so, there's the business cost there also of somebody who's not focused on growth, that's hungry.
A menu of tools for growth is what you said. And people out there may be thinking, I have maybe one tool for growth. It's Ryan Casey. And, I don't have a menu of tools for growth. So give us some wisdom there on what are some of the tools for growth that you see as levers or on the menu list for your team members.
So some of it comes back to that quote of, when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. So I think that vision is so important. So one of the mechanisms for growth isn't necessarily do this little thing here, but it's are the people that are on our teams, can they see the next, 2-3 steps within your organization, or what that would look like? And if they do, I think that helps bring that purpose to today, right? So I had a meeting this morning with the individual that runs my office, and we met for about 3 hours. And at the end of it, it was talking about his path for the next couple of years, in and out of work. And this is that individual that got 30 dreams off his list last year. And so I think that the dreams aspect is also that it's really hard for somebody to be excelling and thriving personally and not bring that energy to work. Right.
What are you good at? Like, what are you great at?
I would say the vision is probably the thing that I would list as one of my top couple. Energy is another one. What I have found is I've been doing the same job now I've had the same job since 2009. And part of where I get my energy from, the source, is the dreams concept. Because it's a different topic, and it's exciting because they're excited. If I'm helping somebody accomplish their dreams, they're fired up. We're having a great conversation. And then it's, well, hey, if you want to do that, you probably need to accomplish this at work, because that's going to cost a little bit of money. Or, hey, you probably need to develop 2 or 3 more people on your staff if you want the autonomy and flexibility to be able to go travel and work abroad, right? And so I think that, again, that's the starting point, is the dreams concept, and it comes back from that. So for me, I'd say it's energy and vision are the 2 things.
What are you not so good at that you don't enjoy as well? Not good at and don't enjoy.
I hate innovating. So I'm an executor. So you give me a list of things to do, I will power through that thing quickly. And so most of the challenges professionally that I've had are related to lack of innovation. I've found through my later years, or most recent years, that I can do it. It just takes a lot of energy from me. So yeah, I'd say the innovation aspect.
So leadership in general, I mean, that sounds like it's a large, big strength of yours, with vision and energy and whatnot. So let's dive back into the book. So you've got the list. what are some, let's maybe dive into incentives, because I think a lot of us business owners out there, I'm dealing with it right now, Dane. We're going to do a big push in one of my businesses. Mm-hmm. And we were on a call the other day with our director of operations, and we're like, let's, give some incentives to the team. And I'm always second guessing myself. I'm friends with Rulin and different people that are really, really smart, but I always come back to second guessing myself on incentives. So some of the incentives are, we send out Cutco stuff because it's great stuff, but incentives, educate the listeners on incentives.
Yeah. So Rulin stuff is fantastic. And it is funny because as you hear that stuff, you do start to question and be like, is this actually going to hit home? And, the idea as a business owners, we want, the idea of spending money on it is to either create a behavior, right, or encourage a behavior, or just to show appreciation and gratitude for that person. And so I can think of many times in my career where I haven't done it well, where it's like, I got 8 managers I need to buy for. Let me find one thing I like and order 8 of them and send them out. And, but we've all gotten a gift before that we've said, all right, that was, the gesture was nice. And then we never thought of it again. And so for the people that work within our team, and I just did this with another company recently, where the list creation is important. And then there's the invitation to share it. So whenever I'm working with people on my team and I create the list, we've got our annual event for my team is this weekend. I just did this for another company in May for their event. And so I helped them create their list. And at the end, I said, hey, I would love to see your list. This is an invite. You could share all of it. You could share 5 things of it because some of it are personal. Why? Just so you understand why I'm wanting this. I want to be able to have a cheat sheet to show you gratitude and appreciation, or set up contests or anything. You guys know that we like to do some of those things here. And so instead of me just randomly picking things that I think you might like, I'd rather be able to just see. And if I have to ask you, what do you want? It takes a little bit of the surprise out of it. So if I can see that, I'd really appreciate it. And then, so for the people that work that are my direct reports, I have their lists. So for Christmas gifts, it's great. It's not hard. I don't have to be creative. I just pull up their list. I look on there. I'm like, oh, and this person wants singing lessons. So I went online, or I think in that one, I told my admin assistant, I was like, can you research some singing lessons in that town? Right. We found him. We sent him a gift certificate for it. He's like, oh my God, this is amazing. So because some of it is stuff they're not going to spend money on, but now it's in the theme of accomplishing your dreams. Traveling is another one. So if I want to set up a work retreat or an event or a spouse's event or something like that, I can look and be like, oh, there's 3 or 4 people that have, an area that's somewhat accessible to us. Let's do our next meeting there. So it's not just a meeting, but it's also accomplishing some of the things on the dreams list.
I'd love to I had it on the notes as you were talking to talk about an event, because earlier you were talking about, how you put together this, the dreams list at an event. And then you just mentioned a retreat. I think a lot of small business owners, smaller franchisees, small teams don't think about having a retreat or an event or something offsite. Yeah. Can you convince somebody that has never done that before, and maybe the reasons they haven't done it before is they don't have a lot of money to spend, or they are not confident in that it's really going to work, or they don't think their team's big enough to be able to do something like that? So if you were talking to that person, what would you say to them?
That's a great question. So the first time I ever did this, it was not a big retreat with a ton of people. And our budget for it now is even small because we don't do it fancy. We do it like outdoor, team bonding activities. But the first time that we did it, I want to say there were seven direct reports and their spouses. And so I did it I used to do like a really nice holiday, call it Christmas, whatever, holiday dinner. And so the first year that we did this, I asked if everybody felt comfortable getting a big Airbnb. So this is in Minneapolis. I think it was one night. So I think I spent $1,000 on the large old, old home. And then I think I spent $300 on having it catered, a couple $100 on some alcohol. And I think I was in probably $1,500. and I was so nervous to do this because I was inviting their spouses to do the dreams list, and they're not in our culture, so they're not hearing me talk about dreams. And but it was awesome. And there's one significant other, his name's Chris. That was Marie was one of my main individuals, and Chris is her husband. And she said he was super nervous, kind of like showing up, like, what's this going to be about? But he played full out, made a massive list. That year, he accomplished 3 dreams on his list. And the next year, he accomplished 16 things on the list. So this is something that they still do as a couple. They talk about all the time. And so, interestingly enough, Marie left my team to start her own business, which I helped kind of consult and have her do that. And now she's helping me with the Dream Machine book, in that, she's fiercely loyal to myself, my wife, because we've gotten to know them on a deeper level that way. So it doesn't have to be some massive budget. I was really nervous to do it, even on the dreams guy at work. I was like, I don't know how these spouses are going to like it, but it was great because it got them aligned, and it also helped them understand their significant other of what this whole thing is and why they're excited.
So, if someone's thinking about a retreat, what is a thing before a retreat, a thing before an overnight? What would you say if someone was wanting to tiptoe into something? Is it a dinner, an extended dinner somewhere to be able to bring people together? They don't want to do a retreat. So I'm just thinking there's people out there that there's something about getting people together face to face. And we're doing it in South Dakota. I mean, we have over 40 groups coming to South Dakota. I was nervous to do this thing because I was wondering if anybody would show up. And now we had to put a stop to any more people coming because we're full. And Caleb doesn't have time to do anything else because he's working on this event that I'm doing. But what it showed me is there's a need for this, and people want to come together. And man, we are not doing anything fancy here. The agenda, like the real agenda, is not out. But I'll tell you, it is not fancy catering. Dude, one of these nights we're going to be doing burgers at my house, like real hand patted burgers. And my dad's going to be flipping burgers and helping out. And I'm sure Caleb will be flipping a few himself, and I'll probably be flipping some burgers. So I'm putting on a pretty big event, but it is, I think, if you set the expectation that it's not going to be something fancy, I think people appreciate that. At least that's what I tell myself. But I'm also noticing other people that have put on really high-end events, large events that are going to I saw some of the other day said, hey, instead of fancy tables with fancy glasses of wine, we're going to have, s'mores and beer around a campfire. Like that's the thing that he's talking about now to his community. So I say all that to encourage people, even with your small team, it doesn't have to be something fancy, expensive. You just have to start with something. So if you were to encourage somebody just to start, how would you encourage them to start, man?
Yeah, I think, this topic is just like development of relationship, right? For me, yep. I was taught in my early years at Cutco of, it's the easiest, and this isn't necessarily where I do now, but if you're newer to that, it's trying to do something that you really enjoy, because you'll be more transparent and genuine in that setting, and they get to see you in that element. I don't mind a fancy thing or whatever. I prefer the lower key ones because I feel like it's a lot easier for everybody to just be themselves and not have some guard up of like, am I wearing the appropriate attire? Am I, and as the business owner, as we have reservations and nerves about like, are people going to come and how's it going to go? The people attending also have those. Am I wearing the right things? I'm going to meet my husband or wife's boss, or, is this going to be okay? And I think when it's just like, look, there's no way that you can underdress and we're just hanging out and we're going to have great conversation. It really does put the focus more on that. And I think that, it's a lot easier to exceed expectations in that situation, but also have real conversation.
That's a great point. And I remember listening to somebody that I think he lives in Lake Tahoe. He's a big VC guy out in Northern California, moved to Lake Tahoe, kind of out in the middle of nowhere in Lake Tahoe, not like in the middle of South Dakota, but he has a beautiful home there, and people come to him. Like, if you want to talk to me, you're flying into a small airport and you're coming here. And I heard that. I'm like, could probably do that here in South Dakota. People might want to come out here. And
Yeah.
sure enough, but I'm in my own element here, and it's definitely wear a hat and shorts and sandals and some running shoes, and we'll have some fun here in good old South Dakota. But to your point, whenever I go, I don't mind big fancy events too, because I go to some of the nicest, fanciest events where the bottles of wine are like, I feel bad drinking a glass of that because I know how much each sip costs. But, so I don't mind the fancy stuff myself. I've been around it a lot, but I also wonder, what should I wear? And so I think that's a great point. As much as us as the event organizers or retreat organizers are thinking about it, the attendees are thinking the same thing. So you can really take the pressure off. So net on that is just do something and take the pressure off of yourself, which takes the pressure off of them. And then another just like quick thing that I learned from Dan Fleshman, he said, like, you don't have to put out the whole agenda. Things are always changing, and people don't have to know what's changing in the agenda. So when I put out the event for the Sodak Shindig, like there's a very loose agenda up there because I know things are always in flux. And the other day someone said, "Hey, can you get so-and-so to come?" I'm like, I don't even know who so-and-so is. So they said, look her up. And she's a big influencer, really cool person. I'm like, man, I can't believe I didn't know who she was. I sent a buddy a text. I said, "Hey, do you think so-and-so would like to come to the Shindig?" He's like, "I don't know. I'll text her." He's like, "Yeah, I think she's going to come. But you know what, man? I don't know if she's going to come or not." And it was the same thing with Dan Fleshman. He said, "I didn't know if, one of the Kardashians was going to show up at this event that I went to, or they would cancel last minute." And he didn't tell anybody until she walked out on stage and he interviewed her. So, there's something to like, just lower the expectations for everybody and you can over deliver. But I love what you're doing, man. Any last bits of wisdom, anything that you want to mention about the book? I can't wait to get it myself. Tell people how to get it and anything that we didn't cover, please, let's cover it.
The one extra little piece to what we were just talking about there, I think everybody's leadership style is different. But for me, anytime that I got to see a boss of mine or somebody with their spouse and kids with not wearing the work hat, I only liked that person more. Now, that might not, maybe somebody's a total jerk.
If you're that kind of person, that they should like you more.
And so for me, whenever I can get people from work to around my kids and my wife, and it's only been a big win in that. Also for my family to see people from work too. So I think that's another element to the keep it simple and involve families if possible. But we covered a lot of bases when it comes to this stuff. I think the one of the core concepts of this is that, as the business owner or leader, they need to, like, if this is something that they're interested in wanting to do, they've got to be in themselves, right? And I've seen people in my personal life that don't work with me that have created their dreams list and they're doing it. And so it is a cool concept, just a different way to live life. My wife and I, our annual event for us on New Year's Eve is we do a year-end review. And we go through our camera rolls, our Google calendars, we do all that. And then we also get our dreams list out for the next year. And we book a whole bunch of stuff on New Year's Eve, right? And so we're able to say, okay, this year I'm going to do these 3 or 4 things on my dreams list. And so it's a great end, but start to the year to do personally as well.
Dude, I love it. Business and personal, like there's no reason not to get this book. I can't wait to get it. And then just to talk to you about it, because you are going to be doing one of your top 5 dreams out here in South Dakota very soon. So I'll be talking to you more about this. I'm going to grab the book. How do people find the book? How do people get into your world?
So you can connect with me on social media, which is just Dane Espegard on Instagram. Also, my website is just daneespegard.com. On there, there's going to be some pre-order options. And one of the options on there that I'm excited about, one of the bonuses, I'm going to be doing a free dreams workshop for individuals, virtual one, in middle October, October 16th. And so anybody that does some of the pre-order stuff on there can get a seat there. And what I like about that is it can give some business owners an opportunity to kind of see what it's like for them personally as well.
What do you think about having their team members opt into that and being a part of that? Would that kind of
the more the merrier
desire? Yeah. So
Yep.
I think that'd be a good idea, because as you were saying that, I was thinking I would love to get some of my team members in on that, because they're hearing it from you, not me trying to explain what I read in a book or heard on a podcast somewhere, but like they're getting it from you. So I would definitely tell your team members about that. And it's the more the merrier. And then it's not you telling them as the boss or the owner, or the manager, it's them seeing it and liking it and wanting it themselves. And you'll have even more buy-in. So check it out. Dane, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Good catching up.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.